Welcome back to our series, where we are revisiting the invention of photography and the stories of people who have helped make things happen. As this is part 4 of the series, if you missed the first episodes, you may want to pause this video and start from part 1. In this episode, we learn about how an epic failure resulted in an act of unprecedented generosity. In these next 4 years, the thing that people have been waiting 132 years to occur was about to happen. As you recall, poor Nicephore Niepce, literally, passed away in 1833. Louis Daguerre continued to work away and was perfecting his process. Now, the partnership contract that Niepce and Daguerre signed stipulated that if one of them died, they would be replaced in the company for the next 10 years by their natural heir. This is how Niepce's son, Isidore, came onto the scene. However, Isidore wasn't Nicephore. He couldn't reproduce his father's processes. Louis gets around to introducing himself to Isidore in 1835. Isidore cedes the naming rights to the process to Daguerre. In 1837, the two partnered to form a company, and of all the dates on the calendar that they could have chosen, they opened their company on the Ides of March. Talk about an omen. No one was interested in investing in their company. If people only knew back then what we know now. Where is Doc Emmett Brown and his 1982 DeLorean DMC-12, by the way? In 1838, high atop a building at 4 Rue Sanson, Daguerre, with his camera and plate, made a 5-minute exposure overlooking where it intersected with the Rue de Marais, and which from the rear looked out roughly southwards over the rooftops towards Boulevard du Temple. Interestingly enough, the Boulevard du Temple was also nicknamed Boulevard du Crime, but not for the reason that you may have first popped into your head. There were many theaters along this street, and many crime melodramas were shown somewhere every evening. The exposure on a 13 by 16 centimeter silver-clad plate was 5 minutes long. With the exception of a person getting their shoes shined, there were no other horses or humans in the image. They moved in and out of the frame too quickly. Today, one can do the same thing by placing a 15-stop neutral density filter over their camera lens and making a 5-minute image. This is also the first image of a person in a picture. Unlike Niepce's first image, Daguerre's image still resides in France at Bibliothèque Nationale de France, the National Library of France. Its aim is to preserve and promote knowledge and is a research library with focus on French literature and cultural heritage. French mathematician, physicist, astronomer, Freemason, and politician François Arago was a distinguished individual in both the scientific and political communities within France. He made several significant discoveries during his lifetime. His research into the wave-like nature of light led him in 1812 to invent a polarizing filter. He also made advances in optics and magnetism and co-discovered eddy currents. Daguerre was at a point where he was in need of advice to validate his work and how to present it to the public, especially since his business venture was essentially stalled. Daguerre, who was neither a scientist nor a chemist, approached Arago, who was the secretary of the French Academy of Sciences at the time. Upon seeing Daguerre's work, he instantly recognized the importance and significance of Louis's achievement. As a politician, Arago influenced the French government to purchase the process from Daguerre and Niepce. On January 7, 1839, Arago stood up in the French Academy of Sciences and presented Daguerre's process to them. On June 15, 1839, the French government introduced a bill to take possession of the invention because they feared that the invention could be lost if Daguerre were to die. A pension of 4,000 francs per year, the equivalent of about US $400,000 per year today, was awarded to both Niepce and Daguerre in exchange for the government taking control of the process. There was also a provision that their widows would receive 2,000 francs per year after each of the inventors had passed. On August 19th, 1839, the Academy revealed the daguerreotype process to the public and made it available to the rest of the world, with the exception of Great Britain. Wow! Now I know what some of you may be thinking, especially since the French had been defeated at Waterloo 24 years earlier by the British. It turns out that this was not an act of spite. Daguerre asked his agent to apply for a British patent just days before France declared the invention free to the world. The UK was thereby uniquely denied France's free gift and became the only country where the payment of licensing fees was required. It was 7 a.m. on September 10th, 1839. The fastest of the transatlantic steamers, named Great Western, had just docked in New York, carrying French and English newspapers that contained the official notice and instructions about daguerreotype photographs. Almost immediately, the free enterprise system that the Americans are famous for kicked into high gear, with chemical experiments being undertaken, crude cameras being constructed, and lenses being ground. On September 16th, 1839, just 4 weeks after the announcement of the photographic process, the first daguerreotype photograph was made in the United States. Before the end of the year, several people had succeeded in recording the human face on a piece of silver that was clad to a copper sheet. An amateur chemist from Philadelphia, Robert Cornelius, was one such person who was bitten hard by the photography bug. He got a camera together, made a plate accordingly, and set things up. He removed the lens cap, then ran into the scene he had set up and posed for a period of time, then ran back, put the lens cap back on the lens. 160 years before the introduction of a cell phone equipped with a camera was launched publicly in 1999, Mr. Cornelius goes down in history as the first person to make not only a portrait, but a selfie as well. So up until now, the advancements made to invent photography thus far had been on the chemistry side of things. As any camera or lens company will tell you, gear matters. If you're a business person, you also know that there are advantages to being vertically integrated in whatever field you are in. Of course, small businesses are often family businesses. Into the picture, pun intended, comes Alphonse Giroux, the brother-in-law of Louis Daguerre. He had started an art restoration business, was the official restorer for the Notre Dame Cathedral, and he also made and sold furniture to the French royal family and others. Daguerre drew up some plans for the light-tight camera, and Giroux's company made it. It sold at a cost of 400 francs, which was about the annual income for many people of that time, and was, when adjusted for inflation, equates to about US $42,000 in 2024. A limited and unknown quantity of Giroux daguerreotype cameras were made, and less expensive and improved cameras came onto the market shortly thereafter. Please join us next time when we talk about a notary invention, the first compact camera, painting's obituary, artists pivoting and being in the limelight, and more. We look forward to you being with us.